Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all very much for joining another Own Your Judaism live stream conversation. My name is Moish Steigman. I often go by the Mindful Rabbi, and I am grateful for all of you who are watching live, for who will join later. As always, please feel free to type any comments in the chat box. Please feel free to share any questions in the chat box. We can make this as interactive as possible. Thank you all again for joining. I would also like to introduce my conversation guest this week, Rabbi Juan Mejia. Juan and I also have a personal connection coming up on 20 years, 17 and a half years. First, wow. Let me give the, I know it's been a long time, Juan. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
And first, if it's okay, let me go through Juan's bio, and then we'll share how we know each other from way back. Rabbi Juan Mejia was born in Bogotá, Colombia. Raised a Catholic, he converted to Judaism after discovering the powerful beauty and message of Judaism. He holds a degree in philosophy from Universidad Nacional de Colombia and a master's degree in Jewish civilization from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Juan was ordained in 2009 by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America in New York. He lives in Oklahoma City, where he serves as the Jewish educator for Emanuel Synagogue. He also serves as rabbi in residence for Be'chol Lashon. Juan is a passionate advocate for converts and making Torah available to all. He has been teaching Torah in Spanish for over a decade through his website, Kol Tuv Sfarad. And Juan, you and I were just kind of reviewing our shared history. And we first met in the fall of 2003. Right, so Juan, and you reminded me that you had just married your wife, who's also a rabbi. You had just married your wife.
Right, we met the previous year, and things move very fast as they do in yeshiva. And we had just been married, and it was this beautiful community of like young couples, people who had just gotten married, who were getting married, and we just happened to be at a very special time in Jerusalem. It was very fondly remembered. And then 5 years in New York.
Yes,
and I think that's 2009.
Yeah. So Juan and Abby were already in Jerusalem, and my then fiance and I, Hannah, went to Jerusalem. I was in the middle of rabbinical school, so I was spending a year studying at Be'chol Lashon. Juan, Abby, and Hannah were all studying at the conservative yeshiva as part of their preparation for and part of their studies, all in rabbinical school. So we knew each other then. Our oldest kids are about the same age.
Yeah,
right? We were born the same month.
Yeah, I think the same week.
October 14th is when Matan was born.
October 11th, Gracia.
There you go.
Yeah, Gracia is three days older than Matan. Matan Etrog. I remember that because he's born on Sukkot.
Yeah. It's an amazing memory. Yes. And did Gracia celebrate her bat mitzvah yet?
Not yet. We do bat mitzvah also at 13 here in the community, and she might have also Hazinu. I don't know if which is she's actually she loves reading Torah, so it's an easy parasha if you know how to read Torah. So
true. Oh, wonderful.
She lucked out.
Yes. Oh, that's great. And I just had one other flashback, Juan, before we start talking. I have this flashback. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That when we were all in Israel that year, you and Abby might have gone out of town for like 3 weeks. You had a dog, right? Like a beautiful No, I'm allergic. Oh, then okay. Then it's definitely
it was not a dog. I think it was Ben Shalva that had a dog. Might have been.
Might have been. Okay.
I've never owned a dog in my life.
Got it.
I cannot. They're very cute, but I
gotcha.
Get all scratchy.
All right. So the flashback is wrong. So I'm glad I didn't go too far down that memory lane. And do you remember the last time we've been in a room together? I can't place it.
I think it was ordination. I think we left very soon after ordination to come to Oklahoma City. This is still my wife's first pulpit and hopefully our last. We love it here. It's a beautiful community that she's built and I help run. But yeah, I think it was ordination. 2009. We haven't been back to New York quite often like that. And you're now in
Milwaukee,
Wisconsin. Yeah,
Milwaukee. Yes, it's been about 11 and a half years. So we've seen each other. Well, it's great to see you again, at least virtually.
Wonderful to see you. That's the beauty of the new reality.
It is, for all the challenges the COVID world has presented, it certainly has opened up. We've always known about this technology, but we've become much more facile with it and much more comfortable with it. So thank you again for joining. Thank you again for your time this afternoon, Juan. I really appreciate it. Tell me a little bit about your Jewish life, please. Tell us a little bit about your Jewish life, please.
So my Jewish journey is weird. As my bio says, I was not born Jewish. I was born Catholic in Colombia. And there were many factors that pushed me towards Judaism. The first one, which later informs my rabbinic work, is that I discovered that my family, on my father's side, my paternal family, were descended from Sephardic Jews that had reached Colombia in the early 17th century and had kept Jewish identity. I don't know how robust or how mainstream their Judaism was, as it was isolated and secret. But there was a memory that was kept alive in the generation. And when my grandfather told me when I was 15 years old, that created a lot of interest. Judaism, Colombia is very different from America in its relationship to Judaism. Like Jews in America, although a minority, they're a minority that is represented culturally, right? People use Yiddish. Like even here in Oklahoma, people schlep. Not every, like Jews schlep more than non, but even you often hear like non-Jews talking about schlep or like there's Yiddish in the atmosphere, and like there's a Seinfeld and there's like the Rugrats Hanukkah episode. Colombia does not have the Rugrats Hanukkah episode. In fact, when the dubbed Rugrats Hanukkah episode aired in Colombia, it was like, what is this? Is there anything other than Christmas? Like, why are they like? What weird religion are the Rugrats? All like Jews are not part of the imagination. There's when I was growing up, there were 3,000 Jews in the country. It's nothing in a country of 40 million people.
Wow.
And okay, everybody knew like, oh, that big building with the copper dome, that's a synagogue. But Colombians don't go there. There's heavy security for obvious reasons. But there's no interaction. There's no cultural representation of proud Jews, even from a secular perspective, in the media and the news. So Jews are invisible. So being told, like I was connected to this story, made me very curious about Jewish history, about like the content of Judaism, and it planted a seed that as I grew and decided like for my path in life, that Jewish echo was ever and ever more present and ever more appealing. When I was 20, I was very blessed. I was backpacking through Europe, and I spent some time in Israel. And finally, I got to see Jews in action. Like when I was growing up, I knew one Jew. Like the next door neighbor of my best friend was Jewish. And that's super exotic. She's Jewish. She's going to have a bat mitzvah. Like it's going to be a great party. I'm not invited, but like it was like this weird like outsider thing. And now I'm getting to see Jews that pray and Jews eating and Jewish language and the food and the sites. And it impressed me very deeply at an emotional level that I hadn't had access before, because all of my approach to Judaism had been, oh, this is a curious part of my family history. That's great, but I never saw it as an option for life until I went to Israel and I saw, oh, Judaism is actually this very rich civilization. What's in it? I wonder what's in it. And then I started studying like the contents of Judaism, and then I was blown away. So like, this is what I have believed all of my life. This is the reason I'm such a terrible Catholic, is that I'm not actually Catholic. I'm Jewish. I don't like the Trinity. I've never understood the Trinity. I've never understood vicarious atonement. The New Testament does not speak to me as strongly as the Old Testament. And then the more I thought about it, the more I said, you know what? Yes, my background is Jewish. I'm part of my family. Part of my family is also very clearly not Jewish, but this is what I want for me. This is my path. This is a conscious choice that I am undertaking. And there is where the story really twists, because once I said, I want to be Jewish, then I realized that it was not easy becoming Jewish. We all know that being Jewish is not easy. try becoming Jewish. Becoming Jewish is even harder than being Jewish, because in a country as isolated and as insular as Colombia, and this is true, sadly, in most of Latin America. Argentina, Chile, Brazil have a little bit more of a critical mass, more rabbis, Jewish middle class. Mexico, Peru, Colombia, there's very few Jews. Most of the Jews that are incredibly wealthy, very tight-knit, very insular community, and they're not interested in outsiders for any reason. Maybe for a wedding, they'll make an exception, but it's like, it was very hard. And it was me for 4 years, kind of like doing Judaism on my own.
Wow.
I was just like doing Kiddush and trying to observe Shabbat, and my friends all thought I was nuts. Like, you're giving up bacon, but you're not even Jewish yet. Like, give up bacon when like you're Jewish. And like, no. Like, I really need to get used to this, because this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do with my life. And I was trying to keep Shabbat the best I could, but without a community, it was very hard. And then I moved to Israel. This was just 2 years before we met, and managed to go to Hebrew U to do my master's, and at the same time finalize my conversion to Judaism. And then what pushed me towards the rabbinate was I realized that there were more people like me. I thought that my story was unique. I thought like, oh, I'm the only weirdo that feels this attraction in Colombia or in Mexico or in Latin countries towards Judaism. But I realized the more this weird new thing called the internets became available, like, oh my God, there's people all over the place and they are heartbroken. They're as heartbroken as I was. Like, I can't go to synagogue. They won't let me in. There's a cop telling me like, I can't, I just want to learn. I just want to reconnect. Or people who I live in the middle of the Amazon. The next Jew is like 5 hours away by plane, but I still yearn. I still want to learn. And the internet just opened this world of possibility. Like, people now during COVID are talking about the level of connectedness. But we need to understand that this level of connectedness is coming from a place of necessity. We are doing this in Zoom now all over the place, in school and meetings and board meetings and seminars, because we have been pushed by circumstances. This reality of being Jewish on the web, because otherwise I don't get to be Jewish, is the reality of hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. Latin America, even in America, people live in the middle of Texas. People live in the middle of Wyoming and Nebraska, who they click with this message, whether because they have family history or just like they're in love with this. And there's so this reality is not new. It's new to most of us, because most of us had not had the necessity to reach out to the virtual wasteland or the virtual promised land. It really so that is why I became a rabbi. I did not want to be that alone. Those 4 years were very hard. You're converting to Judaism, like you're circumcising, like you're giving up bacon, but they don't even let you in. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? I want to be that voice. And that was actually Abby. I wanted to be a PhD in philosophy and be boring. And Abby, who is the smartest rabbi I know, present company. I would agree with you. She is my Rebbe. Yeah. And she said, and she quoted Hillel to me. She said, "B'makom she'em bo anashim tishtadel lihyot ish." In the place where there is no men, you feel the need. You are seeing the need. You need to fill the need. Go become a rabbi. Help these people. You can be boring on your free time, or I don't know. Like, rabbis aren't boring. Like, I can be boring and the rabbi. I know a lot of people will be surprised by that overlapping. But that is what I've been doing. I went to rabbinical school with that clear goal. Although I was iffy about the how. I knew that I needed to become a rabbi to get the Torah, to get the learning, to get the wealth of the tradition, to pass it on. And as I was finishing rabbinical school, I just started making videos in Spanish. I said, look, whenever I open the internet and I Google, back then it was Yahoo search, Judaismo, I'm getting messianic stuff, getting like Chabad and Aish, which with all great respect, to the latter, yes, this is Judaism, this is normative Judaism, but you're telling people in the middle of the Amazon jungle that unless they keep glatt kosher, they're not keeping kosher. And that's not a reality like that is even in these people's realm of possibility. Like you're talking about like, Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, like davening like for 3 hours. These people don't know how Aleph Bet. So we need something that's a little bit more intentional in like, I am teaching Judaism, assuming that you are not Jewish, or assuming that you didn't grow up with this tradition, that you are completely disconnected. And I'm going to talk to you in Spanish. I'm not going to talk to you in Jewish. I don't know if you've ever seen like the Daf Yomi, like the Daf Yomi websites. A lot of them are ridiculous. The guy says, when do we are Kriya Shema? Like half of the words don't get translated. Like that's not how you reach people who are at zero. People who are at zero need a different level of engagement, not just language. That's why I called the website Kol Tuv Sfarad. It's a poem by Yehuda Halevi. It's my heart is in the east, and the last line of that poem is, I will give up all the good of Spain, Kol Tuv Sfarad, just to be Jewish. But also all the good of Judaism needs to be presented in a language that you speak. And in a language that, and back then that was very important to me, that's less important now. That had a historical gravitas about it. Jews have been speaking Spanish longer than any other European language. I would guess, like, I would say Yiddish gets a pass because Yiddish is actually German. So after German, if we consider Yiddish as being German, Jews have been speaking Spanish the longest as a Jewish language, which morphed into Ladino once these people moved to Turkey and Greece. So that is kind of like my Jewish journey. And in February 2020, I was a weirdo. And in February 2021, everyone's a weirdo. Or it's been very interesting to see that like the same tools that I was using to reach the furthest periphery, really the edges of the Jewish world, like the sharp edge of the diaspora, are now the way we run our suburban synagogues in Milwaukee and Oklahoma City and New York and Ronkonkoma and Hicksville and like the places with those Jews. Everyone is now here. And also that's been really a blessing to my folks because now they don't alone. The people who are in the periphery, and people are talking, post-COVID Judaism. And one of the things that they're not realizing of the great things that are coming out of post-COVID Judaism is one of my favorite movies, and I think it's aged well, is Contact. You've seen Contact?
Oh, a long time ago, but not well.
With Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And they used the Arecibo Large Array, which Zichrono Livracha just was decommissioned.
Yeah,
which was the largest telescope, and it was written by Carl Sagan. The script of the movie was written by billions and billions, and the idea is that we send messages to space, and eventually the aliens answer, and they want to be in contact with us. And I really like it. It's one of my favorite movies, and this is what's been happening for the past decade since the internet the past 2 decades. Of like active involvement of a global community with the internet is rabbis have been doing blogs, making videos, writing sermons, and they put it online. And they think, who do they want to reach? Well, they want to reach their shul, right? They think that they're like that the ripples of their activity are circumscribed to their brick and mortar communities. But this is not so. Once you put something on the web, it remains there forever, but it also it gathers a life of its own. And what I've been telling colleagues since ordination is the wave is coming. We are putting out all these messages of like, we love Torah, we love Judaism. This is a wonderful way of being human because we're trying to reach our synagogues. But this message is going beyond our synagogues, and it's reaching people who are thirsty, and they are on their way in. And now with COVID, in which we have made our communities far more permeable than they've ever been. Like people in Colombia, I'm not kidding, cannot enter the building of a synagogue. But now they're getting, like, very easily, they're getting, some synagogues are being, I think, careful in a way that I think it's self-defeating, of like, oh, you just need the password, and like we only want like the people. And I understand that Zoom bombing is a thing, and the communities want to keep a level of intimacy, but a lot of people are just, they're putting it on Facebook, they're putting it on YouTube, and now for the past year, the periphery has been enjoying the same perks as the hub. You're davening online, I'm davening online, and the guy who couldn't enter shul and still can't, even if COVID disappeared magically, all of a sudden have had access of a year of being Jewish and creating connections. So this year's been very interesting to me. I think this is an important milestone that we need to dimension, because we've been, in this past year, putting the message of our tradition, the wisdom of our tradition, in a public way. And it's unintentional. It's a byproduct. We want to reach the Goldfarbs and the Goldsteins and like the whatever families Steins in our community. But this goes further. And now the question is, when the echoes of those messages come back in the form of people saying, listen, I was surfing the internet and I found the mindful rabbi. And this is what I've been looking for my entire life. Like I've been, and this is truly, I think, one of the great revolutions of the future, of the Jewish future, of saying, can we, as a people, switch gears so radically of imagining ourselves as this brick and mortar ethnic enclave, as can we reimagine ourselves as a people that is truly global and that is truly open and that is truly welcoming? Yes, there's a lot of crazy people that think they want to be Jewish or really want to be Jewish, but there's also incredibly valuable assets and people to whom Judaism would be just the tool they need to be the best humans they can be. And that is, I think, the key issue. The reason I think my wife is the smartest rabbi I know, she came up with this slogan, and I really want to make bumper stickers for it. I don't know if in Oklahoma there would be a lot of market for them. It says, Judaism is not for good people. It is good for people. That is the whole point. Torah is a tool for living in a good way and for doing good to others, as are many other wisdom traditions. This is not, I am an avowed pluralist, but I do believe that our message resonates with people that have genetics that might not come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And our tradition is beautifully endowed with tools to, even if you lack the ethnic component and the ethnic memory, to acquire it. And I've seen the in my own work. So what I have been doing for the past, God knows how many years, 12 years, 13 years, is teaching online. But then there's the next component. Pre-COVID was, okay, I found people, you're learning with me, and they come back and say, this is what we want. Thank you. Thank you. You've put it black on white. This is what I believe in. This is how I want to relate to God. This is how I want to relate to other human beings. How do I become Jewish? Particularly when A, there might not be a Jewish community, or B, the Jewish community that does exist will not let me in the door. That's two common circumstances for my folks in Latin America. And what we've been developing in the past 13 years, and it's just not just me, this is a global phenomenon. We know our if you can get him, try to get him, Rabbi Gershom Zizomu in Uganda, MP, he's a member of parliament, he's the chief rabbi of Uganda, and the story of his community is 100 years ago, a bunch of people in the Ugandan outback said, we want to be Jewish. This speaks to us. They thought they were the only Jews in the world. They thought that all the Jews had become Christian because, of course, they didn't get the Jewish Bible. They got a Christian Bible. So they're like, we don't really care about the sequel so much. We're we're a New Hope kind of guy. We're not Return of the Jedi. And then they like delve deeply into Torah, and finally they'd realize, oh my God, there's other Jews. So this is happening all over the place of people claiming Judaism as a path for them, making it their own. And it's not without challenges, but that's what I've been doing, is creating these intentional communities of people who want to follow Judaism, and they're doing it together, either because there are no Jews where they were before, or because the existing Jewish community, for a whole slew of reasons, not many of them very good, wants nothing to do with them.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that, Juan. There's so much to reflect and unpack, and I have so many questions, and there's no way we would get to all the questions I have in the next 5 hours.
Well, you're a show with a rabbi talking to a rabbi. They should take 5 hours.
So I'd like to start with kind of a parallel perspective from where I'm sitting, and then really highlight something that you have brought to the fore for me in a way that I've never thought of before. Right? So from my perspective, I love the idea of creating intentional communities. I founded a nonprofit organization here in Milwaukee called The Spark Wisconsin. The Spark Wisconsin is the sponsor of these Own Your Judaism conversation series, right? The Mindful Rabbi is really an extended project of The Spark Wisconsin. And so much of what you've talked about are things that are inspiring me and have inspired me. So I see so much commonality, the idea that there are people out there who wants to be reached, right? They're looking to be reached. And for one reason or another, it doesn't have to be a bad reason. For one reason or another, the current infrastructure is not reaching them, right? We can make this a polemic against institutions. We can just say, this is life. Not everyone gets reached in the same way. Right. And what you've done in a way that I can't remember hearing so poignantly and so passionately is you've kind of uncovered for me that missing link, right? What is it that connects any Jew who's seeking, right? Because when we were starting to talk, but at the beginning, I anticipated this being a conversation about the work in particular that you're doing with Latino communities or with Spanish-speaking communities, like in Colombia, places where you grew up. And what you've done is you've connected the work that you're doing with the work that I'm doing, with the work that many other rabbis are doing, which is, this isn't about finding isolated communities who have their own unique things, their own unique issues, their own unique challenges. There's a broad segment of Jews, 10%, 30%, 80%, who cares the number? There's a broad segment of Jews clamoring for and desperate for community and desperate for connection.
And it goes even beyond that. That's like, as a rabbi, and we went to the same rabbinical school. It's a great rabbinical school. It's a fantastic place to send your kids if they want them to become rabbis.
This segment of the conversation.
But we were told a thing that I have found to not be true, which is that our main audience is Jews. And that might have been so in the pre-virtual paradigm. In the pre-virtual paradigm, if you needed Jewish content, you had to go to Jewish institutions. If I want to learn Torah, I'm going to go to a shul. And if I don't have a shul where I live, well, then I am out of luck, right? If I am in rural Oklahoma and for some reason I want to connect to the Old Testament, like the people of Judah, people of Israel, and I don't live, I don't know where there's a synagogue. And look, I work with converts in Latin America, but also here in a lot of people are scared. Like, how do I enter a synagogue? Yeah. And our synagogues, and I know there's good reasons for them. Security is one of them. Like a lot of non-Jews don't understand why synagogues are so cautious. But that caution also can be misinterpreted as apathy, as I'm putting out a hand. And that was the reality pre the internet. And then in the past 30 years, we've been living in this liminal space in which Jewish institutions have been behaving like the internet doesn't exist, or it's a crutch, right? It's now I can, instead of having to print out my sermon, I'm going to put it on Blogspot. Then we're going to save some trees and all the cool rabbis have blogs, so I have a blog because I want to be a cool rabbi. So, but we're putting things there, but we're not realizing that because of that, our circle of influence is really gone beyond the Jewish world. And that, yes, in a very in a very geared sense, I don't think Judaism should be aggressively proselytizing people from other faiths, but that there is also need for Torah in the non-Jewish world. That is, yes, rabbis are here primarily serving their communities, but because of the new shape of the interaction, because this is now the vessel in which we're pouring our Torah, we are going to have also a growing number of non-Jews who resonate with the message. And sometimes I have to remind Jews and even rabbis, guess what? There's more non-Jews than Jews. So from in a sense, like the universal appeal of our message, which is something that was not this is one of the things that really heightens my blood pressure. Whenever I give a talk, certainly like pre-COVID, like there's always this guy in the back. He's always a man. He's always like past 60, and he says, but why would anybody convert to Judaism? It's so horrible. And that is in many ways an attitude that has been institutionally kind of sanctioned. Like Judaism holds no wisdom, and it should hold no appeal to people who are outside of it. And that is just patently wrong. And not only is it patently wrong, it's like if you study Jewish history, it's been the opposite. Throughout Jewish history, there's been groups that have been coming to Judaism. And the only reason that they've been pushed away is politics. Like the first anti-Jewish polemics in the church were from the fathers in Nicaea and in Alexandria. And they're kvetching this, saying, Christians, stop going to shul. Stop asking Jews to bless your field. Stop observing Rosh Hashanah. You don't have to do this. Why? Because most of them were like Greek pagans that had discovered Christianity, and suddenly they were gifted the gift of Torah, and they were smart, and they were reading it on their own and said, this stuff is really good. Like even people who are actually Christian and who like were believers in Jesus were like, my God, like these holidays, like Pesach is awesome. Let's do Pesach too. And the church was like, no, pump the brakes. No. These guys are bad. These guys are evil. These guys are like the boogeyman. And that is kind of like the attitude, and to find that institutional and individual Jews have like internalized that level of disdain for the universal appeal of Torah is sad. But now it's like the cat is out of the bag. 1 in 2 Americans. This is the Pew Report. It scares everyone. Everyone's right. About the Pew Report. Like I can't wait for the next one to come out, because then rabbis and priests and pastors get all verklempt and oh my God, like the religion's disappearing. The religion's not disappearing. No. Religion is changing, and the way it's changing is very interesting. 1 in 2 Americans, according to the Pew Report, die in a different denomination or religion to the one that they were born. 1 in 2, 50%. Yes, a lot of it is intra-Christian migration. You were born again, and now you're Catholic, or you've been Catholic, and now you're Episcopalian. And there's also a huge shift towards the none. I'm spiritual, but not religious. I'm secular, I'm atheist. That is a number that is growing. But in the periphery of those numbers, there's also people saying, like, I don't like the religion I was around. Like 1 in 2 Americans is going, I can't talk to God in the way I was taught to God. And you know what you do when you have a question today? You Google it. And when you Google it, you're going to find rabbis online, communities online, whether they're down next door or whether they're across the world. Like I get the weirdest emails, like people in Indonesia, like, we really love your videos. Like, you're in Indonesia making Torah in Spanish. Oh, yeah, like I'm a Spanish teacher in Indonesia, and I love Judaism, and like I love you, salam. Like, okay, this was not my intended audience either. But with the internet, here's the thing that we need to understand: the audience is everyone. The audience is everyone. So now, are we ready to say, you know what? Since we are broadcasting to everyone, are we going to also be proactive in our communities, embracing that new trope.
And this is a powerful reframe, right? Because Public Speaking 101 says know your audience, right? So you get up to give a sermon, I give up to teach a class. You get up to speak at a public library, I get up to speak to a church. You speak at a synagogue, I speak at a synagogue. We always know the audience. And what you're helping really bring alive here is that when we put something on the internet, we have no idea who the audience is or will be. We know who we think is most likely to read or watch or follow, but we have no idea the reach. And what I think you're helping really, again, bring to the fore, Juan, is that our role as rabbis is shifting away from talking to a specific audience. Because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 100 years ago, we knew who the audience was.
Right.
The people right in front of us, right? Or maybe people who'd read a book, but we knew who the audience was. And instead of being people speaking to an audience, we are now content deliverers, right? Our job is to take the content of Judaism, well, however you see it, however I see it. I think we happen to look at it very similarly, right? But whether we look at it differently, it doesn't matter. Our job is now content deliverers. We put it out there, and in some ways, this is field of dreams, right? If you teach it, they will come.
Right. It's like in the Talmud, the most fascinating space, like where the most interesting questions happen, is the shuk or the bedroom. Like those are like the really good saucy halachas, is like the super private space of intimacy, but also like the place that belongs to everyone. And in the place that belongs to everyone, in many ways, like the rabbis knew they couldn't control the shuk. Like the shuk has a life of its own, the marketplace of ideas. And here's, I go to market and I put my stand, my box of oranges or apples or whatever is it. And then I say, apples for sale. And then you as a customer decide if you want apples or not. I can't shove an apple down your mouth in the market. That's not how the market works. So what we're doing now is we're offering our apples and we're offering our oranges. The problem is that if in many people's minds, we're like, oh, sure, I want to buy an apple. Like, I need to see your ID, please.
Right.
Like, are you authorized to buy apples? Have you bought apples in the past? Have you bought, and we think that we have control. We don't have control. You know who has control? It's the Google algorithm. It's YouTube. If you watch a lot of videos from rabbis that are similarly minded, right? If people follow me and then they follow you and then they find like our good friend, I know Ben Shalva, who's doing like great stuff with yoga, like it kind of like leads people to corners of the market. If I want like deep, weird Kabbalah, Hasidus, blah, 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 then the algorithm is just going to give me more of what I pick. And people are going to go their individual rabbit holes, but coming to a point and saying, well, I didn't really mean to sell you this apple. This apple is for the people that buy apples,
right?
Or like for the apple connoisseurs, from a business perspective and also from a spiritual perspective. Everything we know about our tradition is that God loves people, and I even if you're non-theistic. I think you can't be Jewish and not be optimistic. Even if you have a non-theistic vision of Torah and God, Judaism and its daughter religions believe in progress and believe like humans are getting better and humans are supposed to be happy and humans are supposed to thrive. Like I don't think that systems work. Systems that make you miserable eventually break. And we've been around for 3,000 years. And for all people kvetch, oh, Judaism is so hard. Blah, blah, blah. It works. People are still like raising their kids Jewish and people are converting to Judaism. People are building Jewish institutions and making Jewish podcasts and Jewish shows and learning Torah. And I don't think since we can't control who hears our message, I think we should be listening to the people that are coming also from the periphery.
It's another great reframe for our roles as rabbis, teachers, educators, anyone who's in the business of teaching about or sharing Judaism, right? It's a beautiful reframe, right? I know you can't see comments, Juan, that come up on Facebook, but Shara wrote that she loves the analogy of community spaces that you're building, right? So picking on that, right? The market, if I'm the rabbi, I can't tell people which food to buy in the market, right? If I sell apples and oranges and bananas, I can't tell, I can't tell person A to buy an orange, person B to buy an apple, person C to buy a banana, person D not to buy anything for me, and person E to go to the shuk down the street, right? I can't tell people what to buy. It's a beautiful analogy, and it's a wonderful, powerful reframe for anyone who's teaching about Judaism, that it's not my job to tell you what to buy or what to learn or what to listen to. It's my job to teach what is passionate for me, what's authentic within me, right? The Judaism that I own, I now have multiple venues to share. And the people who want to buy this will find me. It's the other way around.
Right. And look, and if people stumble upon your mess and you say, this rabbi is not real rabbi, or this rabbi is a woman, she can't be a real rabbi, or like, this rabbi is a convert, he doesn't have a beard, he has a funny hat. You know what they do?
Yeah.
That's it. And,
they do a dislike and they find something.
And the algorithm says, you don't like Juan. Okay, I'm not going to show you Juan. I'm going to show you more of the guys you. And this is all, it's all consumer driven.
Mm-hmm.
We are still thinking of Judaism as institution driven, in a very 1950s, and it's not just Judaism, by the way. It's American religion since the 50s, with the edifices and the alphabet soup, like the YJACPD and the Jewish, and all of these institutions are fantastic and are wonderful and they're doing great things. But the notion was everything gets trickled down from the mountaintop, from the ivory tower, and particularly rabbis of modern denominations. I'm talking, and this includes also YU and modern Orthodoxy and even Chabad. Chabad is extremely centralized. Chabad is not loosey-goosey. There is a hierarchy. We have a hierarchy, but the internet has disrupted everything. There's this great book by a man named Shirky, I think. It's called Here Comes Everyone. And he has a fantastic example that I meditate on many, like 100 years ago, you wanted to write an encyclopedia. What you had to do? You had to get money. You had to get money, a lot of money. Encyclopedia Britannica. Wow, that's funded by the British Empire. And you get like all the big people with big heads and big titles and big ideas. And you get this amazing amount of money. And you get them together and you publish an encyclopedia. And then you have to sell the thing. So you have to get like people knocking on doors, and many of like my grandfather sold encyclopedias door to door. Like I'm sure many people in the audience have memories of people who like sold encyclopedias or a Hoover. Like here's a vacuum cleaner, or do you want to buy the Encyclopedia Britannica or the World Book? It was a business scheme, but eventually you had to come out even. That's not how Wikipedia works. Like my kids don't know what the Encyclopedia Britannica is. Like I show them that, like, that's a lot of books. What do? They do the same thing that Wikipedia does ish.
Yep. And
why are people writing articles on Wikipedia? It's not because of money. They don't get paid. It's because of love. Because of love. He said, back in the day, I would write an encyclopedia, maybe out of idealism, but it ended up being It ended up being a commercial venture. But I would bake a cake for love. Today, I can bake a cake for love. Like I bake a cake for my wife on her birthday because I love her. But you know what? I really love, I'm going to bring an example that I know you share too. I really love role-playing games. I really love my Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm going to make Wikipedia articles about like Gary Gygax, and this is when the D20 was made in plastic and now is made in a different kind of, like nobody cares about this. I care because I love it. And I just want to share it with the world. But this is how our encyclopedia is written today. It's written by everyone, and it's written out of love. It's not like I don't think a lot of people are making money out of Wikipedia. I'm pretty sure there's like professional Wikipedia article writers, like, like I'm a celebrity. Like write me a nice article where I look like, I'm sure there's a geschäft somewhere there where people are using Wikipedia. But that's not why most people write on Wikipedia, and that's not why most people engage on the internet. Certainly that's not why most rabbis engage on the internet. We engage on the internet because of love. And this love is contagious. What we've done is we've freed the love. Right now, you were the rabbi of congregation, Anshe Emuna and whatever, and it was like 30 families, and they love you, and they came back Saturday after Saturday or the high holidays to see you because they love what you have to say. But now you're saying it to everyone. How does that change? How does that change the math?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I've had this image in my head, a Talmudic story image in my head, Juan, since we started talking, really since like the first minute you started talking. And I'm thinking of the story from Masachet Brachot, from Tractate Brachot toward the beginning of the Talmud. The story where Rabban Gamliel at one point gets deposed as the head of the Sanhedrin, right? And, you know, they eventually bring in Rabbi Elazar as the new guy coming in. And what the first revolution that happens, I don't know how deeply you remember this story. The first revolution that happens is that essentially they add benches to the kind of court. So all of the students, everyone would come in, they would pay attention during the discourse of the Sanhedrin, they would learn, but it's the functional equivalent of opening up the Supreme Court to anyone who wants to come in. They would add benches and benches, and the debate in the Talmud is how many benches they would add. I think if you want is this person who's blowing the doors open to Judaism and just adding benches. But instead of blowing it open in a physical space where people have to physically be there, you're blowing the doors open to Judaism across the world, across the internet. And it's literally anyone who wants to come and learn. You're just blowing the doors wide open.
But I'm not like, we're all doing that. That's not like, here's the thing. I may be one of the few people who is doing it intentionally. Like yes. when I'm teach Torah, I have in the back of my head, you know what? My main audience is not the people that, it's not the folks I see in shul in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I'm teaching Torah at the level and to the heart of the periphery. So when I give a drasha, like for example, we just finished the Joseph cycle. When you are a convert, you read Joseph very differently. When you are in isolation, like Joseph was the only Jew in Egypt for years. And he had to keep it hidden, and he kept like, oh, he's a Hebrew, but like, how Hebrew is he? And like, so like you hear the echoes in the text, like Joseph is all about the internal struggle. It's all about like, how do I keep like my core self, and how do I keep like this image of my father? And there's these midrashim that when he's about to sin, he sees like Jacob's face. Like, how is this relevant to people in the periphery? But in many ways, that's where we have all been doing this pre-COVID, and now post-COVID. I think now we are becoming aware of the reach of our message, whether potential or real. Like certainly all the rabbis who are out here in the heartland are not strangers to, I just got the weirdest email from the Oklahoma panhandle or the middle of Texas, or God knows wherever, like where in Kansas, like the place in Kansas with the nothing, with like a whole like 5 hours driving of cornfields and wheat. There's people there who are finding Judaism and saying like, wow, this is what I want. Question is, how do we welcome them into our community, and how?
Yeah,
that is the big question, and that I claim no more expertise than anybody else.
And it goes one step beyond that, right? Because there might be people in Kansas, in Oklahoma, in Chile, in Indonesia, who have no interest in converting to Judaism ever, but they want to learn, they want to grow. There's something about Judaism that connects them. There's something about a Jewish teaching that connects with them. There's something about you that resonates with them. And rather than thinking that our job is to teach Judaism to Jews or people who want to be intimately connected with the Jewish community, it's just to teach Judaism. There's wisdom in pretty much everything in the world.
Right.
And why shouldn't we as Jews share our wisdom with anyone who wants to receive it?
I'm not a big scholar of Hinduism. I know very little of Hinduism, but how would the world look today if the chief rabbi of the Hindus, like the chief Brahmin of the Brahmins, like sitting somewhere in India, I'm sure with a very nice hat and a really cool room and cool title. When people started doing yoga, in Burbank and in Milwaukee if they had said that's evil. I'm pretty sure it happened. I like my knowledge of human nature knows. I'm pretty sure some people got really upset of saying like they're taking aspects of a religion, detaching them from the religion, and they're using it for their own purposes. Why are they doing this? The answer is it makes them better. It's good for them. I don't do yoga. I've tried. I'm not that flexible. I'm a big guy. But I understand, like, and I see like Jews that do yoga. I understand what it does for you, and I don't think you are a Hindu because you're doing yoga. And so we have so many aspects in Judaism, and I this is kind of a question that I ask, like I ask asking rabbis, like, what do you think is the Jewish yoga? What is that piece that we're gonna give to humanity? And I think we've already given them quite a bunch of their key devotional, spiritual, social practices. But in the 21st century, what is it that Jews have to say to a secular guy in Indonesia? I don't want him to be Jewish. He's fine being a secular Muslim or a devout Muslim, but what can I teach this person? Not to make him more Jewish. I have no interest in making him Jewish. If he has an interest in becoming Jewish, then I might help. But how can I help you be a better human? Because, and this goes back to our tradition, like the purpose of Torah is not to make people more Jewish, it's to make people better humans. It's you have Tzelem Elohim, they have Tzelem Elohim, we all have Tzelem Elohim. We have this relationship with God. How can this relationship that we, the Jewish people, have developed and cultivated with God, how can it help you cultivate the God within you? My two candidates, and I would love to hear what you have to say, like what is your candidate? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. One is Shabbat, which I think people are already starting to embrace. Like there's voices in the secular market of ideas saying, maybe we should disconnect for a day. I'm not talking about candles and Kiddush and Challah and Zmiris, but like if you can put away your phone by it, that is Shabbat. And that might be the Shabbat that America needs. Like, I'm just going to switch off Twitter for a day. And I'm going to check CNN because the world is a dumpster on fire and I don't want to hear from it. And I need time to be with my beloved. I need time to be with both my beloved here in the physical world, or I need time to be with the beloved, with the capital B beloved, without even the rabbis on the internet. And for some people, the rabbis of the internet are a good conduit to the beloved. I think one is Shabbat and the other is Chavruta. Chavruta, just this notion of we're going to sit and you have a text and I have a text. I don't care if we're learning Gemara or if we're reading Neruda or if we're reading, I don't know, the Constitution, but we're engaging kind of like that. Chavruta just makes you, it's this exercise in uncertainty. Like, I'm studying this with you because I know that I don't have all the answers and I need you to challenge me. When I say like, oh, I think the First Amendment is this. And he's like, no. But like the word here is, I don't know, Second Amendment was regulated. Oh, we're going to talk now about what regulated is. And Chavruta and Shabbat, I think that if we could bequeath this to the world, what a world we would live in. It's going to be great. With yoga, and I don't know, like every community, I think, brings their own technologies, but now we can share them. What would you think would be the Jewish yoga?
So this is a great question, and I'll take up the challenge, and then we'll wrap up shortly afterwards. So one of the first thing that I would actually say is Shabbat as well, right? And for a very similar reason to how you say it, right? Because even in Judaism, we tend, I think, to understand Shabbat incorrectly as the day of rest. It's not a day of rest. It's a day of rejuvenation, of refreshing,
inner work,
doing something purposefully different from what you've been doing the previous 6 days. Mm-hmm. Refresh your body, your soul, your mind, your spirit, your energy, fill in all of those blanks in order to prepare you for the 6 days to come, right? It's not resting. It's not putting your feet up and grabbing the remote and clicking through the channels. It's doing something much deeper and rejuvenating. And as you said, I think that can resonate with anyone in the world, especially when we are bombarded constantly with stimuli and intake. To be
and do, react now, click now.
Yeah. So that's one. If I were to make a top 3, Juan, I like chavruta. That might now bump. That might make the top 3. So I'm going to reflect on that. The other thing I talk about, which certainly is not unique to Judaism, but I come at it from a Jewish lens, is the concept of arevut, right? The concept of the rabbinic phrase is Kol Yisrael arevim ze bazeh, that Jews are responsible for one another. I don't look at that as exclusive to Jews. If I had to find an English word, I would use interdependence. I'm not sure if it's the best word, but I think it's conceptually close enough. The idea that being a Jew does not mean that my job is to make myself the best person I can. Being a Jew is to make myself the best person that I can. So in turn, I can do my part to make the world even just a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I think. And again, that's not a unique message to Judaism, but for me, that's one of the top 2 of Judaism. And if there are multiple faiths and multiple cultures that teach that same message, harezim mishubach, the more better, right? So this is not a claim on exclusivity. And I love the idea of chavruta because if I'm going to embark on either of those, I better try to figure out what the heck I'm doing, right? And the chavruta really puts you in a position to start to learn, to unpack, to figure out how you want to own it, how you want to live it in your life. So, Juan, thank you so much for coming and joining. And for
my pleasure and
wisdom and inspiration. Wow, I am overwhelmed, and I love that. For me, this was a chavruta, right? Like I feel like I have learned so much. I am going to go back and review this, and I'm sure that I'm going to borrow some of your nomenclature. Like I love the concepts, I love the language. The one thing I will not steal is the bumper sticker wisdom. From
the world. Abby, that's enough. But
yes, yeah, no. So that I will certainly not steal the bumper sticker from the wisest rabbi in the world. But thank you so much for coming and for sharing your wisdom. And yeah, I guess it's been since May of 2009. But it's great to see you.
I have not made my way to Wisconsin, but please God, whenever we travel again, I do hope to see you. And if people are coming through Oklahoma City, and I not a lot of people come to Oklahoma City, a lot of people come through Oklahoma City.
Yep.
We do have a lovely Jewish community. Currently, we are virtual, but certainly once everything improves, everyone has a home here. And in many ways, it's been a great. A lot of these ideas, yes, the lab has been my work in Latin America, but I also see it happening in America. Mm-hmm. It's like the community that Abby has built here in Oklahoma City is a community of seekers. Yes, you have a core of people who are here from the beginning and who moved 2 or 3 generations ago from Chicago and New York and Dallas and are looking for jobs in the oil business, and that is kind of like the founders. But second, third generation, you do have a lot of people who've come to Judaism from without. Mm-hmm. And today, in many ways, they show an investment in Judaism that is way, because they're using it as wisdom for their lives. They're not using it as a burden. It's like, well, I have to be Jewish because, like, no one has to be Jewish. No one has to be anything. This is the 21st century. That's no, it was not Rav Kook. It was Rav Gershom talked about galut hachofesh. Like freedom can be so overwhelming that we can be in the exile of freedom. We have so many choices that we don't know what to pick. But I think by putting all of these choices in people's plates and saying trust God to guide you in making your choices. I don't know if this is going to be a Jewish journey for you. Like a lot of people, oh, this is my Jewish journey. Like, might not be a Jewish journey, but we can be a Jewish milestone. You can learn things from us for sure. I don't think our tradition is so poor that anyone that comes in contact with it doesn't leave with something, even if they don't end up joining us for whatever that means. We can have brothers and sisters, but we can also have friends and admirers who are not our brothers and sisters. And that like second level, like second concentric circle of Judaism is key. We've never had friends before. In a world, like, look at how the world worked 5 centuries ago, 3 centuries ago. It was the clash of self-defined nuclei, and there was very little cross-pollination, and there was very little conversation. And today we live in the very opposite. We live in this sea of individuals with this global web of connections. They don't all have to be Jewish, but I'm sure you and I and every rabbi and every Jew and every person of good faith and good conscience who has wisdom to teach can teach wisdom to everyone.
And yeah, teaching wisdom and being an easy friend. These are things I remember about you, and Abby. But things I certainly remember about both of you. Things I remember about you, like I said, from when we first met way back in 2003. I have always enjoyed talking with you. Always enjoyed learning from you, learning with you, and thank you again for your time.
My pleasure.
For sharing your friendship and your wisdom with everyone. My hope and my instinct tells me that this is going to come true, is that it won't be another 12 years before our professional and hopefully personal paths intersect as well. I think there's lots of opportunity for collaboration here, and I'd love to talk more about it. And thank you again for taking your time out, Juan. And please say hello to Abby.
I will. And blessings to everyone, and stay healthy, stay safe. And,
thank you.
May we see each other afterwards.
And thank you to everyone who listened to our Own Your Judaism live stream conversation, again with my guest and colleague and friend, Rabbi Juan Mejia. Have a wonderful afternoon.